What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Gage. Welcome to the channel. Today I am excited to post my very first Digimon TCG deck profile on the channel, and what better way to start it off than with my man Beelzemon. I am very excited to go into the deck profile, but before I do, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, let's hop right into it. To start off, I'm going to show off the egg that we play, and that is, of course, 4 copies of Yaman. It is just one of the best cards to play as the egg for the deck because of the inheritable. When attacking once per turn, if it has Wizard or Demon Lords in the trait, that means you get to trash the top 2 cards of your deck. It is just very good at helping to facilitate the game plan of your deck, which is, of course, to mill as many cards from the deck to your discard pile so that you then get access to bonus abilities. And, of course, for the rookies, we are going to start off with 4 copies of Impmon. He is just the best card to play for the deck because when attacking, if you have 20 or more cards in the trash, this Digimon may Digivolve into Beelzemon from the trash for a Digivolution cost of 3, ignoring the requirements for Digivolution. So this just makes it so that late game, you essentially always have access to your Beelzemon. Of course, it also has an okay ability for the inheritable, which says that when a card is trashed from the deck, you could just delete one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon. So this could be a pesky Floodgate Digimon, or just another weak Digimon that may just be able to do small pokes at your security that maybe you just don't want to deal with. So 4 copies of Impmon. Worst case, you just Digivolve into him, and then, of course, get the draw from it and start building your stack. Now, many don't play this version, but I am choosing to play 3 copies of the Security Impmon over the on deletion Impmon. That is because I really want to make it so that I have as many ways to cheat out Digimon as possible. Yes, the on deletion to be able to mill cards from the deck is nice, but sometimes I don't always want to sacrifice my rookie. I want to continue to build my stack, and Impmon is just really good because it punishes my opponent for getting too aggressive. It means, oh man, if I attack, there is going to be the possibility that they just straight up give me a free Impmon, and that is why I do like having 3 copies of him in the deck. And then, of course, I am playing the one of Impmon. Unfortunately, it was limited to 1. If not, I would play 4 copies, but he is understandably limited because he's pretty broken. When this is trashed from the deck, excluding itself, which of course can no longer happen, you may trash up to 3 cards from the top of your deck. So the deck is really about churning through your deck and getting all the cards into the discard pile. And this is just one of the most broken ways to be able to do so, because if it gets milled off of another effect, boom, you trigger it, and then you get to continue to mill cards from the deck. It also has a very good on play to reveal the top 4 cards of the deck and add a Digimon card with Beelzemon in its name and an I Am Mako among them to your hand, and then place the rest at the bottom. That is just insane. It means that you're getting access to your top end, as well as one of the most busted trainers to play in the entire game. And yeah, Impmon is really good. I see why he is at 1 copy, but the deck is still very powerful, even with him just being at 1. And of course, I am playing 4 copies of the Impmon X Antibody. Just the potential for being able to Digivolve for free off of an Impmon, meaning that you are continuing to build a reliable stack, as well as continuing to get cards into your hand. And it also has a decent on-play or when Digivolving effect, that by trashing an option card, you may return a Digimon card with Evil, Wizard, or Demon Lord from the trash to your hand, which means it just adds to the recyclability of your deck, meaning that even if cards are sent there, you always have access to getting those cards back because of this effect. So Impmon X Antibody is one of the strongest cards to play for sure. Now for our champions, we are playing 4 copies of Wizardmon. Very powerful card. When this card is trashed from the deck, you simply gain a memory. As you know, in the Digimon Tcg, the memory gauge is one of the most important things at managing your resources, and Wizardmon being able to make it so that you essentially have the opportunity to gain up to 1, 2, 3, and if you're super lucky, 4 memory in 1 or 2 turns is insane. It means that a lot of your plays are going to end up being for free, and a lot of instances you can even cheat and make it so that a play that would have potentially ended your turn now all of a sudden goes back to your turn because you were able to gain the memory at the last second off of his effect. He is just one of the best cards to mill. Obviously, he's not the greatest when you do draw into him, but you do have to play him at max copies if you are to see him during any of your mills. However, if you just want to use him to build a stack, I am playing 4 copies of Wizardmon X Antibody. By being able to Digivolve on top of Wizardmon, it becomes free, and it has a pretty decent, when Digivolving, trash the top 2 cards of the deck. However, it is kind of weird because if you do end up choosing to get the free Digivolution off of the Wizardmon, it means that instead of being able to trash the top 2 cards of the deck, it gains blocker instead, which is a little weird, I'm not going to lie. So there are going to be instances in which, honestly, I just choose to go into him over the Wizardmon if I am evolving over a rookie, just to be able to continue to mill more cards. However, if there are instances in which maybe you do want to have access to a blocker, he is a good option to do so. And I am also playing 1 copy of Witchmon, just the on when Digivolving, trash the top 3 cards of the deck. Pretty straightforward. This deck wants cards in the discard pile, and this is a very good card to just go into for those moments where you're like, all right, I got to start getting more cards in the discard pile. I'll go into a Witchmon. And of course, the inheritable to potentially buff your wizard or demon lord character, which most of the time is going to be your Beelzemon. An extra 2000 DP can come up because your Beelzemon is most of the time going to be swinging for multiple checks, and you want to make sure that he is beefy enough to be able to get through your opponent's security without worrying about dying to a Mega or something along those lines. And for the last champion, I am playing Loemon, just as the cheeky hybrid for game. We are playing Tamers in the deck, and we do have cards such as the Rivals Barrage that can add a purple Digimon from the discard pile to your hand. So there are many instances in which, all right, if he gets milled from the deck, I can just Rivals Barrage it back and then Digivolve using one of the Tamers and then swing for game. So yeah, he's very cheeky. It doesn't happen all the time, but there are too many instances in which I have been able to close out the game because I had access to that play. I'm also playing, as far as the ultimates, 4 copies of the Beelzemon. This is the when Digivolving, trash the top 3 cards of the deck. You get the idea. And then when Digivolving, this Digimon gains on deletion. If there are 10 or more cards in the trash, you can play a Beelzemon from your trash without paying its cost until the end of your opponent's turn. This is just incredibly powerful because it means that you are that much more resilient to sticking a body on the field. Yes, your opponent can try to remove your Beelzemon, but because if you go into Beelzemon after going and getting access to the when Digivolving effect from Beelzemon, it means that if your Beelzemon dies, you have the ability to revive another Beelzemon from the discard pile. So Beelzemon is just really good at helping to give you the reassurance that you need that, all right, if I go into the Beelzemon, even if it gets removed from the field somehow, I still have the ability to at least end on something, especially since it can be difficult to get into a tall stack with this deck because it does require quite a bit of memory. So I love the fact that it has this built-in ability to have recursion, because if not, it would mean that the Beelzemon would be even more susceptible to removal than it already is. Now, of course, your opponent can still choose to remove it because at the end of the day, you are going to be removing a large stack with a bunch of inheritables, but Beelzemon is just the extra icing on the cake to kind of give you that extra reassurance that you need. And of course, it's inheritable also buffs your Beelzemon by an extra 2k, which, as I mentioned, those small numbers can really add up in those moments where you could potentially end up battling into something that is too strong. And for the last ultimates, I'm playing 2 copies of Balmon X Antibody. When digivolving, you can return an X Antibody from the trash to your hand. We aren't playing them, so that is not necessarily relevant. However, it has a second when digivolving effect, which straight up says trash the top 3 cards of your deck. And then, similarly to the Wizardmon X Antibody, it has the stipulation that if you choose to evolve for free off of the Balmon, that means that you could just delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon instead. So you really have to choose between, all right, am I going to get a free Digivolution and the draw, or do I just want to evolve this over a level 4 instead and then get the ability to trash the top 3 cards of your deck? It also has another inheritable to continue buffing your Beelzemon by an extra 2,000 DP. There are some pretty insane stacks in which you can get your Beelzemon pretty much really, really beefy to the point where there is nothing that has enough DP that you would be able to attack into in security that would stop you. And that is it for the ultimates. Now, going into the man himself, I am playing 3 copies of Beelzemon, one of the most badass Digimon in the entire card game and in the anime in general. He has the ability that when he's trashed, you can play an Impmon from your trash without paying its memory cost, which is really nice. You really want to play as many cards that gain value when they are being trashed. And then he has the when digivolving and when attacking effect that you could trash the top 3 cards of your deck and then delete one of your opponent's level 3 or lower Digimon. And then you can, for every 10 cards in the trash, add 1 to the maximum level of the Digimon that is removed by that effect, meaning so that after you have an extra 10 cards, you are not just deleting a level 3, you are deleting a level 4 Digimon, and so on and so forth. So he is just a really good top end to go into. Yeah, he is the namesake of the deck, and that is why I play 3 copies of him. I am playing 3 copies of the starter deck, Beelzemon. When digivolving, trash the top 4 cards of your deck. And then all turns, when a card is trashed from the deck, you gain a memory for every 10 cards in your trash. And yes, that does trigger off of his effect when you do trash the top 4. He also has the ability where when a card is trashed from the deck, he gains security attack +1. And you guessed it, it does combo with his when digivolving effect. So overall, he is just very, very powerful. All of the time, if you are able to digivolve into him and get a swing in that turn, you are most of the time going to be swinging for a minimum of 2 checks, and your opponent has to deal with him, or else they are just going to consistently get multiple checks per turn. He is very deadly, and that is why I like playing him at 3 copies. For the rest of the megas, I am playing 2 copies of Beelzemon X Antibody. This card is absolutely insane, and the reason to play the deck, you can digivolve him from a Beelzemon, and when digivolving, if this Digimon has Beelzemon or X Antibody in its Digivolution cards, you trash the top card of your opponent's security stack for every 10 cards in your trash. This pretty much cheats your way to victory. There are times where if you do have, for example, 30 cards in your trash, you are straight up trashing the top 3 cards of your opponent's security, not triggering any of their security effects. And most of the time, that is going to be game ending. There are going to be times where you've already swung at least 1 to 2 times with your Beelzemon. So if you do have 30 cards in the trash, which can be very easy to get into when the deck is just trashing cards on Digivolution and when attacking all the time, that means that most of the time, this is going to be able to end the game. It also has the on deletion. You could play a Digimon card with Impmon in its name from your trash without paying the cost, meaning that for whatever reason, if he doesn't end the game and you do end and your opponent is able to remove him, he at least is able to provide you with the consolation of getting an Impmon onto the field, which can be that Warp Impmon that can simply just swing, pay 3 memory, and then go into another Beelzemon for free. Honestly, he is the reason to play the deck. You really don't need more copies since you do have access to add cards from your trash back to your hand. So a lot of the times I honestly do want to see him milled so that I could just grab him for free later on in the game. But of course, he's not too bad to draw into if you are able to get into your stack early. And yeah, honestly, I'm not entirely sure which art is my favorite. They're both just really, really dope. But honestly, Beelzemon himself is just a super cool card. And yeah, if you are interested in playing this deck at all, you have to be playing the X-Antibody form. And now to round out the Digimon, I am playing 2 level 7s in Beelzemon Blast mode. They both are very slightly different in their own ways. I still enjoy playing this version of Beelzemon Blast mode because when this is trashed from the deck, you could delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon, and when Digivolving, you could delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the highest level, which is insane. There are many times in which your opponent might just have the one stack, in which case on Digivolving, it essentially just gives you a free ability to just get rid of that highest stack. If your opponent has a bunch of monsters, Digimon on the field that just so happen to have the similar level, it provides you with a board wipe, and then your turn, for every 10 cards in your trash, this Digimon gains security attack +1, meaning that all of the times that you're going to be doing trashing means that you are simply buffing him to make him that much stronger so that he can attack into the security and get extra value that way. If you don't want to play him, I totally understand, but he is just a very cool card. And in my opinion, his ability has often, the when Digivolving ability has come up to get me out of some sticky situations. And then, of course, the other Beelzemon Blast mode has a slightly different effect. When it's trashed from the deck, you could delete one of your opponent's level 3 or lower Digimon, but for every 10 cards in the trash, you increase that level by 1, which is pretty good. Late game, it means that if this is trash, you are going to be deleting something pretty hefty. However, you really play it for the when Digivolving effect, which allows you to unsuspend this Digimon if you have 20 or more cards in your trash, and then gain 3 memory. So this is essentially a game ender. If you attack with your Beelzemon, say do a couple of checks, go into your Beelzemon X-Antibody, and then trash a couple of cards from your opponent's security, and then just go into your blast mode to stand up again, swing for game. That is the way that this deck is played. It is super aggressive, and it is the big payoff for having a bunch of cards in your trash. It is the reason why we're trying to get as many cards in the discard pile as possible, and it is to set up some beefy and game enders like Beelzemon Blast mode. So I like playing one copy of each because at the end of the day, if they get milled, I can choose to add it back to my hand later. And that's it for the Digimon. I am playing 4 copies of I Am Mako. As I alluded earlier, this is one of the most broken tamers in the game. It has the on play to reveal top 4 cards of the deck, add a Digimon with Evil Wizard or Demon Lord trait from among them to your hand. So this allows you to search for the missing pieces that you might need. And when one of your Digimon digivolves into a purple Digimon, the whole deck is, by the way, by suspending this tamer, return 1 card from your hand to the top of your deck and gain a memory. So essentially what this means is that a lot of people kind of assume that the Beelzemon deck is purely RNG based, and to a certain extent it is. However, with I Am Mako being able to allow you to put 1 card in your hand at the top, it allows you to essentially stack the deck in your favor. You could stack it with whatever you might need in that particular situation. If you need an extra memory, you can go ahead and put the Wizardmon at the top of your deck and then prepare for that to be trashed later on. If you need to be able to kill something, you can send something like your Blast mode at the top of your deck, and then boom, it's in your graveyard, your discard pile, and you can add it back for later. There are just many applications to the I Am Mako, and it's what makes it so that you have a little bit more control in terms of what you are milling on the top of your deck. So 4 copies of I Am Mako is an absolute must, and you have to play it if you are playing the deck. I am also playing 4 copies of Deathslinger, one of the most broken pieces of removal in the game. When it's trashed from the deck, you gain a memory. Of course, we want to play as many cards that have effects when they are trashed. However, it also has the main effect to delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon, and then for every 10 cards in the trash, increase the highest level that the effect can choose by 1. So late game, you are going to be killing pretty much anything. And of course, this is a security bomb, so if your opponent attacks into it, you could just activate the main effect and go ahead and delete something that your opponent controls, assuming that you have enough cards in the trash to be able to facilitate its effect. I am playing it at 4 copies because I do not want to get blown out. I want to make sure that my opponent always has to respect my security, and of course, it is pretty good at being able to mill to gain you that extra memory. And last but not least, I'm playing 4 copies of Rivals Barrage. When it is trashed from the deck, you may place it in the battle area, and then its main delay is that once it is in the battle area, after the turn it was put there, you can simply put this to the discard pile to return a purple Digimon or Tamer card from your trash to your hand. So this is what I was mentioning earlier in terms of the deck's ability to have recursion. You don't mind if certain cards are trashed because Rivals Barrage makes it so that essentially you have access to almost everything. If you have 30 cards in your trash and you have Rivals Barrage in your main area, it means you can simply send the Rivals Barrage and add whatever you may need in that situation. There are many times in which I have 2 or even 3 Rivals Barrage that was milled from the top of my deck, meaning that I have 3 of these in the delay area so that I can simply get whatever pieces that I need. And it has the main effect where you could straight up just delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the highest level. And of course, that is the same as the security effect as well. It is a security bomb. It has applications when it is milled. This is easily the strongest card in the deck, and that is why you have to play 4 copies of it, in my opinion. And guys, that is going to be it for the profile. Thank you so much for sticking around this long. Let me know what you think of the deck. Do you have any tech that you play in your version? What kinds of different numbers of the cards do you play if you do just so happen to play the deck? And of course, if you are interested in seeing other Digimon decks like these, please be sure to leave me a comment for a deck that I should build next. I definitely plan on featuring and highlighting other decks in the future. Thank you so much for sticking around all the way this late in the video, and until next time, take care.